Ooh.
Ooh, I jumped back right in time. Except for the fact that I was looking at this screen and I wasn't looking at. Ooh, I'm hearing myself. There we go. I fixed it. Yeah,
Okay.
I was looking at the wrong screen, so there's probably some weird delays. Anyway, welcome to Owlbear Soup.
Owlbear soup. Oh my gosh, I'm excited for today.
I am as well. Here, just adjusting my mic. It was a little bit of a scramble to get ready this morning. I was having some technical issues. Surprise, surprise.
I was just having some brain issues. I was just like, Sunday. Gotta get some coffee.
Yeah. Oh man.
But I'm glad that we are here because that awesome topic. You sent me earlier this week that we had a listener who wanted to, a viewer, a listener, a human who wanted to know a little bit about our DM prep processes and things of that nature. And I've been thinking about it all week long.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think before we get into that, let's kind of hit on the important subject of this week.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get to our topic of the week, it was tell me a little bit about summer camp.
Oh, summer camp. Oh my, we just wrapped up our advanced week. So 10 kids, right? Two parties of 5, each of them with D&D experience under their belt, and the goal was to kind of, gosh, I don't even know what the goal was anymore. It was to potentially work with kids who have played a few times and wanted to talk about DMing or wanted to works a little bit, master the rules a little bit more. And so we get there, and both of the groups are really, really similar. Like we have a couple kids who have been playing. They've played like 5 or 6 adventures. It's kind of where I thought they would be.
Yeah.
And then there are 2 kids who have been running their own campaign for the last 2 years.
Oh wow.
On Roll20, or it's just the breadth of experience was so broad. It was really impressive. One of the kids was like, "Yeah, my dad took me to Gen Con when I was 4, and
wow.
I've been playing D&D ever since." It was that kind of, and I was like, "Oh shoot!" So
nobody ever took me to Gen Con at 4.
I know. But it was really neat. It was kind of fun to have that like totally cool experience because it helped. The kids who had experience got to see kids who didn't, right? And they were helping each other. And the ones who didn't were like, "Oh my gosh, if I had done all this, I could run a campaign on my own." Like it gave them confidence that they could move forward. So that was very fun. The adventures were ridiculous. One of the groups, everyone so far has trusted this ridiculous headmaster that I've created who sends you out on adventures, right? Through portals in the academy, like moving around the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the advanced groups realized very quickly that they did not trust that at all. Like those motivations are villainous.
No.
And so they go out and they're looking for this artifact that they're trying to find, this MacGuffin I have in the campaign, right? And they find it, and it whispers like secrets of treasure. Like it's definitely the kind of thing a warlock would want to grab. And it's definitely also like a +1 to spell attacks and things like that if you attune to it. But it's not intelligent. It just sees things and kind of tells you about them. And everyone was like, nope, don't like that. Except for the warlock who was like, yes, I do. So that group split into 2 immediately. Like we were coming up to our big finale, and 2 of them were like, well, we're gonna go this way, and we're gonna find this treasure that it's telling us about. And the other 3 are like, no thanks, I refuse. That headmaster's evil, sent us to get an evil thing. I'm not doing it. I'm gonna do what I want and then get back and like slap that headmaster in the face.
So anybody who's going to be in Rich's camp coming up in these next upcoming weeks, please go ahead and plug your ears for about a minute, because I want to know, is the headmaster actually evil?
Ooh, I don't think so. I think that he is selfish neutral.
I like that.
Right. It's kind of is Umbrella Academy what I'm thinking about? The headmaster of the Umbrella Academy is not a good parent figure to the kids who have these powers, right? He's bringing them together because he wants to build a superhero team.
Yeah.
And is not, that's kind of the intent here in a lot of ways. It's a character that wants, is kind of sad that their own Adventure Time is over, and they'll make these new people and they'll send them out on expeditions. This one's a little bit more kindly, a little bit more positive, but yeah, in the background, I think it's about the fame a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Evil, a little far.
Aubrey and other people, please go ahead and let me know if there's any other audio issues. When we were getting set up this morning, I realized all the audio was being routed through my Oculus as opposed to my computer.
My gosh,
so,
we could have done this in VR.
so we didn't have all the normal audio testing that we normally do.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Ooh, I like this comment. D&D evil, but not morally evil. Maybe that's
Okay.
interesting, because I almost, when I think about evil in D&D these days, it's actually moral evil is the box within the alignment box. So there's like, people can be morally evil, but that's still not even to the level of like fiend evil. Right, for the purposes of like detect evil and good and those kind of abilities.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, what would the difference between D&D evil and morally evil be, right? Like,
right?
Is morally evil more evil than D&D evil? Is player evil, player character evil different than monster evil, right? So, and we discussed this a little bit last week, where we're stripping away alignments a little bit from the traditionally monstrous races, and there's some guidance there, and this isn't a new thing. This has always been there, right?
Yeah.
But people have clung to these rules, and now they're making a really good effort to strip these ideas away. So you have, compassionate orcs who are just a very different type of humanoid on whatever campaign you're in. So so then I guess what D&D evil and morally evil is actually changing a little bit too.
Yeah. I love all these conversations. There's a big post on Ian World actually like this week that's going through Jeremy Crawford talking about alignment. I think it was Jeremy. But one of the comments that came out recently that I really like actually on this alignment debate is that like angels and fiends are like, divine good or divine evil, like the far levels of what good and evil are supposed to be, right? We have storylines with fallen angels. We have redeemable devils. Right. And one of the comments I think Dan Dillon put out there is like, yes, but when you redeem a devil, they stop being a fiend. Like they change, their fundamental nature changes to reflect that. And I was like, really? Is that in the rules? I haven't seen that, but
no. Well, fiends and devils are classifications of creatures, like
right,
aberrants and undead and beasts and things like that. So I don't think anything ceases being a fiend when its morality changes.
Yeah,
but that was still a fiend,
right?
In that sense.
But that was kind of the planescape, the multi or whatever. The larger idea was that this, if you were a petitioner that turned into a fiend and at some point someone redeemed you, then you would have to petition to a different plane or something like, like maybe that was the intent, and you wouldn't be a fiend anymore. You would get reclassified as something different, some other kind of planar creature that was not a fiend or a celestial, maybe something in the middle. Which I was just like, whoa, okay, now I'm intrigued, because it doesn't Descent into Avernus focuses on a fallen angel. That's like one of the major characters, and I'm curious if they are classified as a celestial or a fiend in their monster stats in there, because I haven't read it.
Yeah. Huh. That's no. Now I'm thinking about like some of the old Blood War stuff and things like that, and how factions worked in Sigil, and then how how that type of stuff works, cosmically.
I know, Justin. I know that you know that's a hard G in Sigil. I just feel like we talked about GIFs.
I think. Now I don't know which one I say naturally. I think I say Sigil.
I don't think it matters a whole lot anymore.
It doesn't matter a whole lot. All right, so Zuriel is a fiend. 5 Iron Fanatic let us know, which is awesome. And
nice.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing, and I mean, you can build like entire campaigns around that question too, like
sure,
and I think this is going to open up a lot of opportunities for folks to build the good versus evil campaigns and play with it.
Yeah. Now I'm ready for the Castlevania Symphony of the Dark moment at the start when Dracula's sitting on his throne and throws the wine glass down and says, "What is a fiend?" in the tank.
Right. And then
Oh wow.
and this is something that I've always already, like, even before like this Jeremy Crawford thing came along, and he's really talking about it a lot. That was something I always kind of played around with in most of my home games anyway, is playing around with the idea of, morality and, who's good, who's evil, and why do we think that, right? So for
Yeah.
example, in one of my campaigns I was running, the party met a group of lizardmen. I may have told this story anyway before, but anyway, someone threw a fireball, killed the last remaining members of the tribe, except for one, who was out hunting or fishing. But he comes up, and he's like, "Oh no, my entire village has been fireballed. All my family and friends. Who did this?" And the adventurers are there, who did this, and they're like, "We don't know, but we'll help you find it." Right? You're playing with the idea of, like, oh, maybe these weren't bad lizard men, right? Just because they look like lizard men and, they're tribal does not mean they are necessarily evil.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that stuff
Richard was part of that campaign.
I was part of do I remember this moment? Oh my gosh. Did I do it? No.
No, I think Fletcher did it. This was back in when we were playing at Guardian Games.
Oh, right. I remember that. Oh my gosh. That was a while back.
Oh man, that's a really good looking emote, Laser. I really enjoy that. I think that's a handsome fellow there.
Holy cow. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm gonna have to. I recently took a picture with a large squirrel statue, so I don't know. I don't think I can turn that into an emote. A little too big.
Whenever we unlock 50 followers, we'll hopefully start unlocking emotes, and then we can start using goofy pictures of you as emotes. That's a Dread Pirate Rabbits emote.
I like it.
Speaking of followers, starting next week, I'm going to put a little follower goal thing on the screen. That way we can kind of keep track. We have a goal of getting 50 followers. If we get 50 followers, then we're going to be doing our push towards affiliate, which means we'll have to do some additional streams. A couple of those could be the infamous paintings stream that I've been putting off, more video game streams, and what we were talking about very briefly before we kicked off was doing a D&D play adventure type of broadcast.
Could run you through a game of Honey and Heists.
Yeah, we could do Honey and Heists. I still want to play the Red Nose Day special. Do that.
That would be fun.
Do we be goblins? That type of stuff. That would be fun.
Yes. So many exciting things we could do. That's really fun. We should get to 50 like now.
Yeah. So, anyway, so we're going to be kind of starting that drive next week, and then we're also going to be doing a drive to get folks into our Discord. And that will, if we get enough people in there, that'll allow us to feel good about spending the money to give the Nitro boost to our Discord, which will then open up low latency chat channels for everyone. And if you want to, as our friends and everything, want to run your D&D games through the Owlbear Soup chat, you certainly can, with a slightly lower latency.
I was going to say we could just jump in an NPC, but no, that's rude. You don't just sneak into an RPG. I mean, we could.
We shouldn't. No, that's a bad idea. That's a
no.
We
idea. Shouldn't. We would never do that. Oh wow. I hope this happens now.
Yeah. Anyway, so there was a couple other topics that kind of what mug do you have today?
Today I have a PAX East wonderful mug here. So I just love our this is a state, I assume it's the state of Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it looks like, it kind of looks like, for the 40K players out there, it looks like the grab-a-claw on
yeah.
Works.
Uh-huh.
It's got to go.
I see that.
I'm using a slightly chipped Indie Reads Books mug.
Very nice.
Might
Very
be.
nice.
Yes, yes. Okay. Anyway, I was just kind of curious. I got distracted by your mug because I had something on the bottom, and I was like, oh, I wonder, is that a fancy mug? But it's not.
Oh,
Why would
it's the Penny Arcade logo.
Nice. Okay, so a couple other things did happen this week that you wanted to touch on as far as the D&D news.
Yeah, so I wanted to check it. I mean, I follow the DMs Guild quite a bit. I still got stuff up for sale, although I don't have anything I'm planning to write for it in the near future. But one of the things that happened this week was to a friend I've collaborated with. I looked it up, and I think we're in 5 books together,
Wow.
including Unbridled, which is one of his books that he led. Unbridled is a book about hags and unicorns and hags riding unicorns.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It was great. It was like someone put a dare out. I think Jeremy Crawford did, and Oliver Clegg, who's on Twitter as Death by Badger, got like super excited and was like, "We're gonna make this happen right now." And the call went out almost immediately, and I ended up writing this little mini adventure about heroes who need to transform themselves into unicorns and successfully argue in unicorn court to save the life of a hag who has been framed for murder.
Wow.
Which is all silly, but it is really, really fun. But Oliver's a really cool author. I like him a lot. He started like writing and fixing Ravenloft and kind of was a big proponent of the approach that like the way that the Vistani are used in Ravenloft is terrible, and like how can you rewrite these books to make them a little bit better, a little bit more modern. Done a whole lot of things, and at this point now he's like a huge voice. Like when I think about successful authors on the DMs Guild, Oliver is easily in the top 3. He has 3 books in the top 10 right now. He wrote just recently, he's been churning books out, just like filled with these cool archetypes. One of them's the book of 9 to 5, where everybody has like terrible jobs as their archetypes.
Nice.
I can't remember which one it is, but one of them is which class, but the subclass is a beekeeper, and the entire flavor text just says bees. It's great. It's great. The book of bad magic, the book of weird magic, like he's just got he's it's kind of a cynical author. I like him a lot. He goes like, it's almost Grimm's fairy tales, like, you know, you're good, there's candy, but there's also darkness, you know, around it. He's an amazing author. I like him a lot. And one of his adventures is up for best adventure in the Ennies right now.
Oh, fantastic.
So huge voice, right? Doing all this stuff, proponent of like kind of pushing boundaries in a lot of ways. I really admire him for it. Super good for the guild. And he put out a book recently called Curse of Hearts. And he, in his promo stuff, he's like, this is an adventure with gay vampires. And part of it is also like, it's kind of an adventure. Mostly I just want people to get gay with vampires. Like that's all in his flavor text his promo text that he sends out. And he's amazing. He's got like a team of artists that he works with to do these things from all over the place. It's just such a cool group. And DM's Guild pulled it because they disagreed with some of the art that was specifically in that book that had been created for it. And it's funny seeing that artist go in and talk about some of them, but they pulled a few and they said, you can do this book if you remove these images. And he was like, well, I'll censor them. And then he totally like censored them and then wrote in like, this was censored because DM's Guild was like, nope, you can't do that. We'll let you have the book, but you can't put it on DM's Guild. Which is terrible. And so
yeah,
the community, you know, leaps to his defense. The artist is like, look, that's not a tentacle. It was a really funny post. I loved it because they censored one of them because there's this figure, kind of like an ooze style figure, and it's got some tentacles, and the tentacles are kind of wrapping around suggestively. And
doesn't even have nipples.
Right? But also the artist wrote and was like, look, dummy, it would be over here if I had added one on here. And it was really like just very specific. That's not, nope. But it was really good to have like the whole community like jumped there to his defense, and also like go through the DMs Guild and the free art packs that they provide to creators. And they're like, go ahead, you can use this art in any DMs Guild products to make it look prettier. And many of those are great, but many of them are totally suggestive, you know, stuff that I would never want to use. And so a lot of the comments were like, you know, you are banning this book and censoring it because you are, you know, you're fine with like heteronormative sexy art, but not with queer sexy art. Um, ugh. So,
Yeah. And I guess, in I was definitely on that bandwagon of, that's BS and it shouldn't be an issue. If it should, there's a couple of camps, like, going up a little bit. There's the camp of, I'm okay with sexy art in my, DM's guild, and then
yeah,
there's the group that's, I'm not okay with sexy
right,
art in the DM's
right,
guild, right? They need to pick one. And honestly, I don't care which one. Like, my preference is, sure, let's have the sexy art there, so long as it's not, gratuitous, right? I think that's okay. And just have a little warning, hey, sexy art, right?
right.
I think that's great. But I can understand why people may not want that on a DM's guild, right? And I'm okay with that too. But then let's make sure that, all our succubi are fully clothed, right?
Right.
Sure, we can have succubi, but they have to be fully clothed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the language around these characters just needs to change so dramatically. And they're just like, the monster manual is filled with that. Like, there's the succubi, that we've got, wood nymphs, we've got dryads, we've got a lot of creatures that are very like from these old stories, sure, whatever, but like they're still enforcing these specific stereotypes. And so it's so frustrating to see this specifically be the moment when they were like, actually, we want D&D to be family friendly, so we're not going to allow that. But it's so pointed, it's so specific, and it's so ridiculous. The good news is that they have said, after this outcry, they're like, okay, we're going to take a look. We think that we have gone too far. We want to talk with the author and try to get this onto the platform, instead of just saying you can have it somewhere else. Because DM's Guild license is so specific. If you write for DM's Guild, you can't have it. Like, it only exists on DM's Guild.
Right.
It looks like they're taking a step back to try and consider and see what they did wrong and maybe learn, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
But it was also like a perfect call for a lot of the community to be like, is DM's Guild what we want to be associated with if they are going to be this restrictive? Like, how do we get our work out there where it's kind of free to be whatever work we want it to be?
Right, and that's a problem, right? You have a platform like the DM's Guild, and it's backed by a major player like WotC, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in order to get that much exposure, it would be tough, right? And that's like, if we decided to do this stream on, we were looking at StreamYard for potential, right? But what we were going to do is we were going to take StreamYard and we were going to port it into OBS so that we could stream on Twitch. Or with StreamYard, we could just stream on StreamYard, right? It's like, how many of us like go through StreamYard and look for streams to watch?
Right.
None, right? So even with Drive Through RPG and those, it's like, sure, they get some traffic, but DM's Guild, right?
Yeah.
You that's why people put stuff there, right?
Yeah.
In your DM's Guild author, right? It's like, how many sales, it. And actually, even let's take a step back, right? You just put out your investigations book, right?
Yeah.
And you did not put it on DM's Guild.
I did not. It's currently, like, after the Kickstarter, it's up on Gumroad.
Yeah.
And I probably should put it on Itch at this point. Itch.io, whatever we call that. But I've considered putting it on Drive Through RPG, who hosts DM's Guild, right?
Yeah.
Because it is just such a better platform for discoverability. And immediately I'm thinking about that and, like, is it good to be part of that for discoverability, or is it good to stretch these things out? Like, it's super.
Right, and so
it's a real conversation.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's like, we don't need to get into the details or anything, but since you put out investigations on Gumroad versus something that you've had that's been moderately successful on DM's Guild, like, post Kickstarter launch, right?
Yeah.
How sales looked, and that's something to kind of consider, right? Because of discoverability. Sure, and as Laser points out, you did make way more money, but did you make way more money post Kickstarter?
Right. The Kickstarter itself is ridiculously better than DM's Guild in total, right? But when I look back at my sales over the last month, and I'm like not promoting anything, but just like focusing on letting it be discoverable. I have sold more copies of an adventure I wrote like 3 years ago that I haven't thought about in the last year. In the last like month or so, say, than my detective book. So I need to the platform is stronger there, and I need to find a way to make that, like, market it so that it is more discoverable. But that takes personal work, you know. So yeah, it's true. They've got a thing, and it's a big thing.
Yeah. And I think it was your product, and I think you went the right route, right? I think Kickstarter was a much better route to get that initial chunk, and now it's like looking at the life of the book post Kickstarter.
My gosh.
You have to start to look at things like Itch. You have to start looking at things like, well, not DM's Guild, right? Because you can have it on other platforms, but things like Drive Through RPG and, other places for people to acquire this book. Yeah, Amazon, right? Like the Lazy Dungeon Master does. He puts his books up there, that type of stuff. So
that's true.
And at the same time, you wouldn't post just an adventure as, a single 4-hour adventure on Kickstarter. It's a much better place, but it started off on DM's Guild.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's one of the things people are saying, like Owlbear specifically, is like, if you're trying to learn, you're trying to build your brand and what you want to do, like DM's Guild is such a great place to get those early sales going and like get people to see what you've got and like join in collaborations and things like that. Like it's a good like hotbed of creative work right now. But he's like, but when I want to start being me and doing my thing, he's not sure DM's Guild is the spot for that anymore. It's the spot for very specific D&D content. So a weird conversation. I really hope that they put his book on, that it's exactly how he wants it to be. But that relationship seems pretty fraught at this point. So I wish him well on the Kickstarter that he better be putting out right now.
Doing the Kickstarter, using the audience he built from a very discoverable platform like the DM's Guild, or, and this attention he's gotten on Twitter, which is another discoverability platform. And take those and then do his Kickstarter. I'm sure there's a Kickstarter coach who knows a little bit something about this. Do the Kickstarter. Take advantage of those audiences that they've built, and then push it like you have to Gumroad and Itch, and and I think that's a great trajectory for producers of content these days.
Gosh, I'm sure he's already got that in the works, but maybe I might have to check in, see what his plans are. Anyway, so yeah, I just felt like I wanted to bring that up because it's an important topic and I like it. And Oliver's great, so
yeah. So we'll have to touch that base next week and see where the book is and get everyone to go get it.
Yeah.
Marketing. My brain thinks about marketing a fair amount.
That's good. I just got chills. It's just like, oh no.
I'm bad at it for myself, but I'm good at it for other people.
Right.
So the one, I really only have one kind of item that I wanted to bring up before we get into our topic of the day, and that is Warhammer 40K 9th edition has rolled out its rules. I posted a link in our Discord. They're free. It's just a very basic rules, kind of like your SRD for the D&D players. And I'm thinking about picking up Tabletop Simulator and trying to find some 40K games online and just learning the new system and all that jazz. So I'm pretty excited. I like 40K. And as if I needed an excuse to get back into it, the fact that I can play it on virtual tabletop and the base rules are free, right?
Yeah, that seems pretty reasonable. Are you required legally to have your miniatures on Tabletop Simulator painted in order to play with them in the game?
You mean your physical miniatures that you're not putting on Tabletop Simulator?
Yeah. Do you have to take pictures of painted miniatures? Yeah. Otherwise, they're not legal.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, when I say Warhammer 40K, it's a Warhammer 40K knockoff. So it's not actually 40K. You just happen to have minis on the table, and you're using 40K rules.
So this is 9th edition. Oh my God, I'm so bad at this. How long was 8th edition around?
So for war games, the edition cycle is a fair amount quicker than RPGs, as you can tell by 9th edition. I think 8th edition was around for 2.5 to 3 years, maybe. Which seems about right, because 7th edition, if I remember correctly, 7th edition was the one that nobody really liked, and it was only around for like 2 years. But I think it's usually a 3 to 5 year cycle. And then with the thing about the way it works is they create the army books, which as they create the army books, they create it for the current edition. But
Okay.
then whenever the new edition comes out, all the old army books are still playable.
Oh, that's good. That's helpful.
So for the most part, the rules are not super drastically changed.
Mm-hmm.
If you go like 4 or 5 editions back and try to use a rule book, you're gonna have to do some converting.
Uh-huh.
But like, you know, if 9th edition, the core rulebook dropped tomorrow, you could still use your 8th edition orcs rulebook to play.
Okay. So they don't go through and like nerf some of the orcs like they do in Hearthstone or something. Just be like, we're gonna take this one, we're gonna drop its power level down, or we're gonna increase its cost, or.
Yeah, that's when they release the new army books. That's when they do those.
They do all that stuff. That's real. Okay.
Yeah. So they do. So it's kind of like if D&D, if they released their 6th edition, and then so what they would do is they'd release the SRD, which contains no classes or spells or any of that stuff, right? So just the bare core rules of how combat works, of how, you know, maybe leveling works, that type of stuff, and then they would just update that every 2 or 3 years, and then you get your new warrior book, right? Every 2 or 3 years too. And in the warrior book, it goes into the warrior specific rules. So that section that would be, your class progression, your feats, that type of stuff. That would be its own book. So
okay.
That's the way it's structured.
It's just I hadn't thought about it in terms of like when I think about D&D, that you make a new edition, it's so drastically different that you don't compare them so much.
Right.
But when I think about like video games, like updates coming out, or and you see clear abilities get nerfed or get buffed, and there's always like all those reaction videos, like, oh my gosh, and now I'm just mentally thinking about those for Warhammer 9th edition, and just like a chat forum somewhere where everybody's screaming about the nerfs, and I love it. Like, I'm so excited.
Oh yeah, no, that totally happens in 40K.
It's amazing. Oh, my captain got nerfed.
Oh no, not again. Oh. Why does Games Workshop hate orcs? Yeah, it's that same kind of like the same nerfing cycle. Speaking of nerfing cycles and video, I just thought of something. I've been playing Legends of Runeterra, which is a Hearthstone version of games, and that's a lot of fun, worth checking out. And then Kingdom Rush Vengeance, I think, is the other game I've been playing on my phone recently.
Is there a new Kingdom Rush? Is that true?
Kingdom Rush Vengeance.
Okay.
Yeah, it's out. It's out now.
Okay, I might have to check that out. Dang.
It's so good. It's so hard. So good. All right. Well, anything else before we get to the topic du jour?
I'm ready. Been thinking about it all week. For 3 days, half a week.
Yes, Kingdom Rush Vengeance. So for this week, we are going to be talking specifically about prepping for games. Now, this is not just from a player perspective or a DM perspective, right? Because DMs have a certain level of prep they have to do, but it's also for players. Like thinking like a player, like how do you prep? And in addition to it not just being DM and player, this conversation may carry over because there's a lot going on, but also prepping yourself like with what you need to bring, getting yourself physically ready as well as mentally ready for the game, because you're about to go spend anywhere from 2 to 4 hours hanging out with people in a very structured social environment where you're really going to have to be like doing improv for almost like a good chunk of that time. And I've never really done improv before, but it looks exhausting. So
from what I can tell, yeah. Oh wow. That's interesting. I love the idea. I was thinking about this primarily as a DM, but I think the player focus is actually really important, right? It's just getting started. Like, how do you prepare as a player for that session? Having taught many, many players over the last week, there was one game session where someone had not finished their boss fight in Breath of the Wild at the start of the session. And she was like, I'm just going to be a minute, and kept working on it. And it was really funny to me because, in a sense, like, awesome, beat that boss, like, go. But in the other one, I was like, but it's my turn. It was really funny. So I might put that out there. Consider finishing your boss fights before the game begins. But if not, enjoy your boss fight.
Yeah.
I liked it because she was, engaging in it's hard, I think, to transition, right? D&D is such a strange, like, you get in and now we're collaborating and we're hanging out and we're doing this thing, and there's this adventuring moment that starts right when the game begins, but there's also this like very specific section right in between, where you have gone from your world to now I'm in this social space to okay, let's move in. Like that social. Like I see stretching in here, and for sure it's like social stretching, right? Um, just talking to other people, which is super important these days. Getting those things going, like having those conversations that are going to bind you all together and then start leading you eventually into that moment where someone's going to say like, all right, let's start playing D&D.
Yeah,
I
and
love that moment.
I think that extra little time um, ahead of the game is a nice time to kind of get your energy rolling, that type of stuff too, in that you get that conversation going, things are rolling, and then you're able to just quickly transition that into playtime.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do love that story of someone trying to finish their Zelda boss before they come and play.
Absolutely. Like it's just, oh my gosh, it was such a cool moment. Because everybody was both excited and like, what's happening, but also like, wait, which boss is it?
Right.
Oh my gosh. I'm looking, oh my gosh, how am I blanking on all of my folklore background? Oh my gosh, I've lost a word in my brain, and it's not coming to me.
Well, you look that up. So whenever I'm
there
getting
it is.
prepped and ready to play for a game, the things I like to do is about, and for me, it's like an hour before I leave is when I start getting prepped. And so that's when I gather like my books. That's when I gather my, that's when I level up. I tend to level up like right before I go. That way I kind of think about it for the entire week.
That's smart. I like that.
And, you know, but I would say my way of prepping both as a DM and a player is a bit more on the last minute time crunch type of methodology, because part of it for me, like I think that little rush of trying to get things together right before it's time to go makes the wait not so bad for actual playtime, and then it gives me that kind of adrenaline boost that I want whenever I hit the table ready to roll.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the best way. I don't know if that's the healthiest way.
I mean, I think it's pretty good, especially if it's a game that has taken a month or something like that. If the more distant the games are apart, like the more important that is. If it's a weekly game, it's a little bit easier to get focused, to get into it, to maintain that momentum throughout the week. But yeah, D&D is a game that requires that momentum and that kind of not requires, that's strong, but that passion, get into it and play makes the game better. So I personally like that approach. Whereas I usually level, at the end of an adventure when I get home or something, and then I'm just like thinking about possibilities. And the farther out the game is, the more I stop doing that and have to come back and be like, wait, what happened? What am I? I'm ready to go. I swear I am. And then trying to pick it up is harder.
Yeah. And as Laser's pointing out, I would love to hear how other people get prepped to play. Getting snacks, right? That's an important part, right? Like, okay, in at least for me and Aubrey, something that kind of has happened, and I don't know if this is on purpose, but we tend to have on D&D nights, tend to have a very specific dinner that night. It's a pulled pork sandwich made of jackfruit because I'm not eating meat, and and a pickle and a couple little things like that, and it's like, it's fantastic, right? It's just a nice little, like, oh, it's D&D day, I'm gonna have a pulled pork sandwich, and that's what I'm expecting for dinner, and it's gonna be fantastic. And so then it kind of has that Pavlovian response where it's like, I smell those spices. It's time for D&D.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I mean, a big part of the D&D process, right? As someone who brings people to your home. Like we do the same thing. Our game is usually in our space, so it's like making that space ready for D&D. Like I definitely am like, oh my gosh, I got to do the cleaning stuff. Like that's part of my D&D prep, is making sure, you know, the space is clean and clear and ready to go. I'm thinking about where everybody's going to sit. We have to, you know, we move the table into the right position. We extend all the leaves so that it's ready. You know, like that stuff. It's just, it gives me a signifier that something is about to happen. Folklore term, are you ready? It was liminality. Liminality, that we enter this liminal space in between, this veil in between the rite of passage, the activity we're going through, and the outside world. And it's kind of this separation moment, which it is. It really feels like that. It feels like, you know,
Exactly.
D&D is more special when you do something to make it a special thing. That
Yeah.
was the word. It wasn't feet. It wasn't feet.
Are you sure it's not feet? Or
I mean,
pumpernickel?
pumpernickel. Pumpernickel would give you that smell. Maybe if pumpernickel was the, you know, you pumpernickel bun.
Okay, yeah.
That sounds terrible. And oh no, you're taking all that.
Yeah. Oh, ordering pizza, right? You know, Laser points that out. Like, fantastic, right? That's exactly the type of thing. I think part of D&D is the ritual, right? You know, we are, you know, we are humans. We like ritual. We like when things follow things that we expect them to follow.
Check out my bin of sacred ritual objects here.
Exactly, right? Exactly. Yeah.
You know.
And yeah, it's I think part of the ritual, like, you know, whenever I would play, when we were playing in person, every Saturday or every other Saturday, I'd go to my friend Jonathan's house and play D&D there. And part of my ritual would be I would leave absurdly early, which I always do. I would stop at Chipotle and grab a burrito.
Yep, that was my Pathfinder bit. Yep.
Yep, exactly. I would get to his house absurdly early, and then I'd go up to his apartment, and then we'd hang out and we would talk about whatever, right? For like a half an hour, and then people would start to show up, and then the conversation would grow, and that was part of the routine. So it kind of, like, I was able to build my energy because I had that same routine.
Yeah.
And
right.
You can ask Aubrey. I'm clearly a creature of habit, right? Like, I have a very specific routine on certain things, and if I don't follow that routine, then it throws my energy off, which is actually where this question kind of came from. You know, in this pandemic, you know, it's sometimes hard to get the energy up to, you know, say, all right, I'm going to sit in front of my computer for 3 hours and play a game. You know?
Especially when you've built in those rituals like that. We have D&D as this social experience, right? And it's not just about the game. It's also about this buffer, this like you're talking about, the talking, the getting the food, like the cleaning, the ordering pizza.
Yeah.
Like, we just can't do that stuff online as easily.
Yeah, so creating new rituals, I think, you know, as far as both the player and DM, getting your head in the right space. I think that's the big thing, right? You create a routine, you create a ritual that will allow you to kind of get into the mode of doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's definitely something, like, even I do in preparation for this podcast, right? Like, every Sunday morning, I get up early, I go run through the shower, I sit down, I have a smoothie, and I do some additional prep. I then wait to the last minute to start doing all the audio checking, and apparently, you know, I'm always suffering. And then I set me and Rich's chat live at 10:30, and, you know, at 10:55, boom, I start the smooth jazz. At 11 o'clock, I hit the button, and we're good to go, right? You know,
start that smooth jazz. That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. I like that. Right, because that does, it makes it more, you know, it makes it a thing for you that's going to happen. Just sitting down and, like, getting started immediately. I always feel bad, you know, I've done a couple Zoom D&D games, and of course I'm doing the camp, but if I'm not ready to go right at the start, I feel terrible. Like, there's been a couple where I've been rushing around doing other stuff, and I sit down and I'm like, oh, I don't have my character sheet. What's happening? And I'm just distracted for the first half hour easily.
Yeah.
And I know some of the other players have been, you know, with that game, we keep, like, a spreadsheet. We keep a list of, well, it's really a list, it's not a spreadsheet, but, like, a list of all the things that we kind of want to do, like the interactions we're kind of planning out throughout the game. And we'll talk through a bunch of those as we go. And if I haven't had time to, like, look over that or add my thoughts to that, then, you know, I almost feel like I'm not playing. And I can see the care some of these other folks are taking to build that up and think about the game even when they're not in the game yet. Oh, I love that. Oh, that's so good. That
And
list is so helpful.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
I'm having a technical thing, but
Uh-oh.
we'll sort it out in just a second. Um, yeah, in Laser points out, like, as far as it's like improv, like, D&D is one of those things where they really feed off the energy of other people, and I think that's great. That's why you have that buffer, that initial, like, for my Wednesday night game, we meet up about a half an hour early in Discord, and people trickle in, right? As they're
Yeah.
finishing dinner or whatever. We all trickle together and we start conversation, and
Hmm.
and we talk a little, and that helps get the things going.
Yeah, I will tell you a terrible secret about teaching. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Um, the teachers that you liked as teachers probably checked in with you at the start of class and like talked a little bit and did not talk about their subject.
Yeah.
Right? And you remember their stories about, their wacky stories because they just wanted to engage with you at the start.
Yeah.
Um, Teachers who don't spend those few minutes like connecting with you and creating a buffer between what you were just doing and the class material are probably not your favorite teachers.
Yeah.
Um, D&D is the same way, even on Zoom. Like that, those few minutes where you connect are so important. Um,
and that's just kind of a way of interacting with people, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
just in general, like, anytime I'm running a meeting, like, I run a bunch of meetings because for my team and stuff like that, or
yeah.
anytime that I am, like, or when I was a salesman, like, I used to go, have to do these sales calls where I showed up at these offices and had to present my wares.
Hmm.
Never started with the business at hand.
Yeah,
Never.
yep.
I would talk about sports. I hate sports, but I was a orthopedic
Hmm.
implant salesman, so I was dealing with a bunch of orthopedic surgeons for all sports medicine doctors. So it's
Right.
like every morning before I would go into surgery or into their office, I would read the sports section and pretend I knew anything about football, and we would talk football for 10, 15 minutes
Uh-huh.
before we actually got to business.
Yep. Yeah. Right. Because that moment does the dissonance between like you were doing a thing and now we're talking business is so huge that it puts you in a negative space no matter what. It doesn't make you ready for what's to come. But at the same time, if someone like sat down and watched that meeting and was like, why was that meeting 10 minutes shorter? Why weren't you why did you waste this time? Like, they might not know as much about the business and business as you were thinking. Or, for me, it was like, well, now they don't know as much math because you were screwing around for 5 minutes talking about, pets and things like that.
Right.
But like, it's hard to quantify how much better the interaction will be if you spend those moments like connecting and talking about other stuff and realizing that we're all kind of getting into this space where we're ready to talk, business.
Right. Well, it's getting the attention of, and it's getting the attention of your audience, and that's why, like, even on this show, right, why we start, like, with small talk. We talk a little bit about a previous week, talk about a little this that, and then we slowly build up until we get to the subject.
Yeah.
And that's where we are, right? And I think that's great.
Yeah.
There's so much good chat going on right now. Folks are discussing a lot of ways they keep themselves organized as DMs are getting ready to play. And I think this is definitely going to be something that we'll want to touch on again as well.
Yeah. I've
But
got so
yeah,
much written for that.
yeah,
But I love
exactly,
this.
right. Like, we haven't even really gotten delved too deep into that.
Hmm.
And that maybe next week that's what we'll do, is we'll do a really deep dive into, like, being a DM into DM prep, and this is kind of like the top level, like, getting ready to game discussion. Um, but
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
a couple of things as far as, like, DM, right? As a DM, it's like I would have the same routine depending on what kind of, sorry if that was plosive, depending on what kind of game I'm running, right?
Hmm.
So if it's for my home game, right, I do a lot less prep for my home game than I do for organized play. Right?
Sure. Yep. Hmm.
So home game, I will read over the chapter, like, because we're playing from a book, or I would look over my notes. I was using OneNote for a while as far as keeping notes in on that stuff. I'm starting to move over to Notion now.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
I like the database features, and so what I would do is about an hour ahead of time is I just read over my notes and set up my map and all that type of stuff.
Mhm.
And then for organized play, I'd print out the mod, I'd read the mod, I'd highlight all the box text, I'd highlight and underline all the important, like, things that I need to remember in certain
Yep.
scenes.
Yep.
I would draw out all the maps. I would grab all my minis.
Mhm.
I'd figure out how to pack everything in my bag, and then and that was my prep. And instead
Yeah.
of prepping for organized play, you could prep it took me about 4 hours to prep a 4-hour adventure.
Yep.
Prepping
For
for my
sure.
home game, which is a 3 to 5 hour session, takes me about an hour,
Mhm.
right? It takes me a little bit longer now because I'm getting the Roll20 maps sorted, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you about that because I've never run D&D organized play. I've only run Pathfinder.
Yeah.
I know the mentality in Pathfinder is what you want is for someday two players from separate states to get together and say, we both played the same adventure
Mhm.
and be able to talk about exactly what happened because it happened the same way. Like you as the game master are like an arbiter, but the story's written, you tell that story. You run those combats, you do it just like that. There's not a lot of flex to change things in response to player actions too dramatically. Not in ways that would affect the story.
Yeah.
I think is D&D looser than that?
No.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
well, AL is a little bit looser than that.
Okay.
It didn't start out that way. It's a little looser, but not super, right? Like you
Yeah.
can still go to your cons and compare.
Mhm.
Like this is my experience, this was my experience, and,
Yeah.
and it'd be pretty similar until
Okay.
you get to convention specific mods and all the other weird layers that they've layered onto it.
Gotcha.
I think Pathfinders. I like the adventures and stuff in D&D better than Pathfinder's adventures
Mhm.
and stuff. I
Yeah.
feel like Pathfinders have a very interesting formula, and it's
We've
there.
got a formula, yeah.
Yeah, and so but I think the organization and the way that they do manage to organize play, I think they do a much better job in
Yeah.
Pathfinder with Paizo.
They do some fun things that I will be borrowing for a secret project coming up soon. But yeah, I totally agree with you because that focus on when you're doing organized play and you're trying to tell someone else's story, like I'm trying to make sure, I got to get all the details. I got to make sure I know it. That way I can tell it as if I was just coming up with it, if that makes sense, which is why a home game is so much more fluid, like so much more fun in a different way to create and take so much less prep. Is we're going to tell that story together, and as I'm just like bouncing around, you're not going to tell the difference between me bouncing around and me having mastered this story adventure that someone else wrote.
Right. From chat, what's your mindset when you're trying to show up for playing?
Ooh. I mean, you know me. It's just excited all the time. I'm a squirrel. But
Yeah.
it's definitely it's about like getting up to that point. I think there's definitely a moment of letting go of a lot of things. Like I struggle to show up to a session when I'm so hung up on something else, and I usually in those cases won't go to a session if it comes that way. But one of the things that I really focus on when I'm going to any D&D game is the knowledge that like, and I guess it's part of my personal rituals. The person who made the game has invested this time to make this thing happen, and these players are investing their time. Like it's a shared experience. It's not it's not just like if I don't go to the movie will still happen, right? Other people get to watch it. Like we've all kind of put this time in, and so for me, it's become an event that is worthy of my like focus and dedication. So that's part of my mindset, I think, is like I want to make sure that I'm here to contribute. I want to go in and help make this experience as good as possible as a player, as a DM, as whatever I'm doing. And that kind of setting aside has to be part of that. So I'm a big proponent of like diving in heavy because it makes the experience better for everyone that's there.
Yeah. If you're having a bad day or you're having a rough day and you have to somehow get yourself out of it to go play D&D. Because sometimes it's tough, right? Sometimes D&D, as much fun as it is, and as much as we enjoy playing the game, when we're playing the game, sometimes it's hard to crawl out of your hovel to go roll some dice.
Yeah.
Like how do you break that? How do you adjust that cycle?
Gosh. Yeah, because there are moments where D&D feels trivial. I mean, it's just a game, right? It's just a game. Yeah. So a lot of it is about, almost, honestly, almost diving into that sports mentality that like, or what I just watched an interview with Lin-Manuel Miranda, and he was talking about his first run of Hamilton in the first year and how one time he had a fever that was 104, and he was like, I'm going to do it. I'll still do it. I'll do it.
Right.
And it's thinking about that, especially you've got that it's the team, it's the other people, right? So
Mhm.
it's hard, I think. It's super hard to change the mindset that you were in and focus on other people. I understand that's a hard thing.
Yeah.
I get there as well. And if I can't do it, like I said, I tend to just be like, just call in.
Mhm.
I've had to do that recently for an online game. It was just like, I know I'm not going to be able to give my best performance and be there, and I'm going to back down. Um, how do you change that? How do you go from there to there? It's a big
Yeah,
gap.
yeah, it is. It's tough. It's like I have a hard time, and it's like I usually know in the morning,
Hmm.
like if by evening time if I'm going to feel up for gaming, right?
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of times, like for me, and I hate to use this as an example, but the disappointment of other folks is sometimes enough to fuel me,
Hmm.
right? And even if it's like a begrudging fuel that gets me to the table, by the time I get to the table and start playing, I tend to be better. Like that's my energy's back as soon as I hit that initial buffer of like hanging
Yeah.
out and chatting before the game. It makes me feel connected and with the other players, and then I feel, when I feel more connected, that's energy, right?
Right.
Um,
Hmm.
I get energy from other people. I'm an extrovert, right? Like that's me, right? Like
Yeah.
you stick me in the bigger the group of people, the better. And it's just like, give me that energy. I'm an energy
Hmm.
vampire, and
I hope not. I hope not.
but it's one of those things where it's like that's what gets me over that hump.
Mhm.
Um, and I would love to hear from someone who's a bit more introverted, like how they overcome that feeling, like of exhaustion before hitting the table,
Yeah.
and kind of like pushing their way through it. And I mean, I don't know that I have a great answer. I think my answer is creating a routine around it, like,
Yeah.
which is kind of
And
what we've been discussing a little bit.
yeah. And I know, we I think around the end of my time with Pathfinder Society, you were coming in every once in a while and playing a
Yeah.
couple games. And that's different than a home game because your own understanding of the ritual at home, like of the people that are going to be there and the fun you're going to have, can be enough to get you over that hump. When it's a little bit less clear cut what's going to happen, I
Yeah.
am a lot less likely to make that transition. So the building of the home game is such an important way. A thing I connected with in organized play really well was like, I would always go in and chat with the people who were in charge. They were friends of mine, and
Yeah.
that changed things so quickly. It's just,
Mhm.
from this random event with strangers to a random event with strangers, except I also know a bunch of people, and we're going to have that moment no matter what. That was an immediate way to kind of change it. So that focus on the outcomes that are going to come, because D&D is overall a very positive social experience. Like,
Yeah.
if you can get there, it can be so good. But getting to the location, starting the ritual is a hard process. Recharge with some Animal Crossing, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Some
Yeah.
way to focus, and then move like that. I think that's the hardest part
Mhm.
is the getting up the gumption to move,
Yeah.
whatever that takes.
Yeah. Well, we started a couple minutes late, which is why we went a little bit later. And I think next week what we'll do is we'll dive into session prep as far as new DMs, potential DMs, or even established DMs on how you prep for a D&D session
Mhm.
or any RPG session. And then, you can probably use those, like D&D is great. It's one of those things where it's like there's so many tools you can use from D&D that you can then take into other options, right? A lot of my DM prep is very similar to how I prep for meetings and
Uh-huh.
presentations. So, but I think we should dig into that a little bit more next week. Before we get into wrapping up, I just wanted to say thanks to all the new followers. Our bots are a little wonky today, so I just wanted to say thanks, Nemo Draven, Lucky Gecko, Ziggy 1982, Carpentrix, Ninja Kitty, Amber03 Amber, Earth Mother 97, Starcross 3D, Hey Lucky Annie, Slap in the Face, John M. Scalzi. Thank you all for all your follows.
Wow.
And thanks for whoever boosted us onto social medias. You're great. We are up to 46 followers,
Oh
so
my
we are
gosh.
4 away from having to do our scramble for affiliate.
getting
getting to do our scramble for affiliate, and that'll be a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'll have to talk a little bit later on what exactly we want to do for that scramble for affiliate. So
Absolutely.
wow. Yeah.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. So in this upcoming week, Rich, where can folks find you?
Oh, I will be diving. I will be bunkered up because I'm running 3 camps this week. 2 for kids that are both kind of at the apprentice level, and then 1 in the evening for adults. The last one was a ton of fun, so I'm really excited for this next one as well. Teaching adults to play D&D is, I mean, it's all good. It's all great, but it's so exciting. So I'll be doing that for all of my day, and then sometime about 9 o'clock, probably, I don't know, get on Destiny for a little bit and then collapse. So don't look for me. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, clearly you can find me on Destiny because maybe that's the stream is we get our little Destiny group together and we just stream Destiny because none of us are great and it's a lot of fun watching us try to do the jumping.
Oh, are we just gonna do that the whole time?
The whole time. We're just gonna try to do the jumping puzzles.
Perfect.
Let's see. This week you can find me at 2HitAC0 on the social medias. I am also a DJ here on Twitch. So on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, I stream over at twitch.tv/DreadPirateRabbits. Other than that, you can find me on Destiny if you find me, or I will be playing a lot of Beat Saber.
Oh, very nice. Sounds like a good week.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and we will talk to you again in a week.
See you later.